And welcome back to the morning show. Tyler Carlson, our guest this morning. Tyler, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you excited?
Yeah, we're very excited.
I think the entire community ought to be very excited about this.
They ought to be, because they all helped. They all participated to make this happen.
They all did. So the money that was going to be taken away is no longer going to be taken away. It stays here safe with the ability to use it within the community.
That's exactly right. And if you remember, about a year ago we tried this. We tried to push a bill through, and last year we got it through the Senate in 2017, 30-0. It got hung up in the House and did not make it. Arguably, it's 1 or 2 votes that didn't make it, depending on how you look at it. But technically, there was 1 vote that we didn't get. And so we then started, I mean, that was in May of last year. We started from May of last year, strategizing on our own.
Right.
And in June of last year, we started to go back after it. Because as you know, if something is wrong or we believe that we're right, we're pretty dogged about it.
Yeah, you are.
So we went after it, and we don't like to lose, and especially if it's for the right thing. We don't like to lose, so we went after it really hard. And this year, and of course we had Borelli and Cobb, and they were stalwarts throughout all of last year and including this year. And we went after it, and we started a whole program, take action program with our members, and our members got on board, text, email, social media, but really amazingly, 2,200 letters for each congressional person. So 6,600 letters, but there was really 2,200 each.
Right.
But that's still pretty amazing.
A bunch.
That's a bunch. So our community stood up and said, that's right, let's keep the money local, and off we went. And we pushed it again. We had a strategy of making sure that all of our elected officials knew, and not just ours, but others.
Right.
And we all got together, all the co-ops got together, and this was a rural push. The rural communities were trying to keep the money local for all the rural communities, and we went after it, and we got it through the Senate again this year, 29-0. So there was no opposition. We actually got it through the House. I think about March 20th, we got it through the House, and it was 57-0. There was no dissension. There was a few people absent, but no dissension. And we had worked the whole year with both the Department of Revenue, and the Department of Revenue worked very well with us this year, really accommodating, really trying to make this happen, really trying to figure out a way for this all to work. They didn't want this battle any more than we really wanted the battle at this point. But so we're still working with them. We still have another piece we need from them, a little piece from them. But we had worked at the governor's office too, and the governor was very supportive of the rural area issues, and took this upon himself and all of the governor's staff as, okay, this is right. This is kind of let's keep the money local, let's keep the money rural. And gosh, we passed the House on the 20th, and then within a few days the governor signed it, which was just amazing. Wow. Very fast, very fast, and it surprised us that it went that fast. It's not really surprising that it would get the governor's attention with the overwhelming support that it got. So we got the bill through both the Senate and the House with no dissension, and so I really think that it's kind of a lesson for all of us, is that if we really do participate in the political process, we really do work hard on the political process. If we work together and we work hard, and we're focused
and work smart,
focused, have a strategy, and execute on that strategy, I think what we've demonstrated is that the local communities can rise up and they can affect an outcome. And it does take work, and just because you lost once or just because you were dissuaded once doesn't mean that you go away. So, and we haven't, and we didn't. So we persevered.
Now that 1 vote that was hanging you up last time, that obviously worked in your favor this time.
Yeah, and truthfully, out of our representatives, I'll just say it this way, Borelli and Cobb have been stalwarts, and they've not had any problems at all.
Right.
The last remaining one had a problem last year, expressed some concern this year, but when it was all said and done on the vote standpoint, he voted in the right way. But it wasn't the real activity, the real people that took upon it to themselves to make this happen, are Borelli and Cobb. But you see that same scenario. You see them
a lot.
Yeah, you see that scenario right now. They work together well, and they work for the benefit of the folks that are out here in the rural communities. And you're seeing that with both Sonny's activities in the Senate, trying to deal with the water issue, as well as Regina's issue.
Right.
Regina's showing up at some of the water issue things that you're well aware of.
Right.
And so those folks, they do stand up, and they're busy, so that you can't get them to every little meeting that you want them to get there, because they're busy folks. Regina has her own business that she's still working and operating on, but they're busy, and so and Sonny's busy. He's very active. So you can't get them to every little meeting that you have, but you can get them to meetings. But when you do call upon them for help and action, which is really the important part, not whether they're sitting next to you at a lunch. The important part is do they represent you back in Phoenix.
That's fantastic.
It is.
It's just, I don't think people realize, because occasions like this don't happen that often, at least not ones that come and are in front of the communities that say, we need your help. Not that many of them come forward, so they don't recognize the fact that all of the issues that follow that plea for help, and all of the people back there that just start working on it and put all the hours in, and phone calls and coercion and...
Oh, it's constant. It's like almost a constant babysitting back at the legislature, because somebody will wobble a bit with an idea or a thought, and you have to be there, right there, to try to make sure that
get them back on track.
Get them back on track.
Yeah.
And it's like herding cats, or sometimes it's like frogs in a wheelbarrow. You got to stop every once in a while and put them back in.
I've never heard of that one.
But the frogs all got to the end line, so it was a lot of work. It was it is great. And so, Mike, the money will continue for the River Fund. So. Veterans Resource Center, our classroom grants, all of those activities that we've always been in are now protected, and we're going to continue with those in the future.
I couldn't sit here and tell you what the dollar amount of the donations has been from MEC to River Fund, for instance. That I should know, and I apologize, but I will tell you, the audience, that were it not for Mojave Electric Cooperative, we would be missing a lot, and we were in. All of us were. I think we're nervous. There's no question about it. We were nervous because we lost that contribution, and the state was trying to take it for whatever reason, as they do many times with many funds. You've seen it go through here on several different occasions, the sweeping of funds, and this was just another one that was earmarked for another area, so they thought. And with the work of these great people, with the MEC folks, and it helps the entire community. It's not just MEC, it helps the entire community, and that's what this fabulous.
Well, we think it's great. We like giving the proceeds back to the members, and to the extent that they can't cash those checks, or they can't or won't cash those checks, that we still turn that money around to still help this local community, that it doesn't go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you guys, we have some pictures of us when we're back there working, and the whole board. I don't know if they came through or not, but
do you have any questions?
Well, there you go. And there we're back, and this is actually during our legislative rally in January, and we were directly meeting with both Sonny and Regina, and we again. We didn't have to sell them this year, even though we brought them 2,200 letters. It was to remind them how important it is, not as if they didn't recognize it, because they've been really active. And there's another picture there that shows the whole board. Basically our whole board went back, and they're presenting those letters. So there's the 2,200 letters to just Borelli and Cobb each. So there's 2,200 or so letters each. And they look through them and make sure that they're not 2,200 of the same signature duplicated, and they're not. And that really is amazing, is that 2,200 folks took the time to put their personal, put their signature, their address, that whole thing to a letter. And that doesn't count the number of folks who did social media, who did emails and all of that, because I know there was a lot of that happened too. I just don't have that tally.
Right.
We do have this particular tally, but it's fairly impressive to walk in, anyone to walk in on a support of a bill and have thousands of letters that they can present. So,
You know, just last week I was reading something, and I'm sorry I'm out of my depth on this one, but in regard to rural co-ops in the state of Nevada are having some issues up in the Northeast with NV Energy, and you know they're trying to eliminate many times these little rural co-ops, which it's certainly to Nevada Energy's, NV Energy's
sure,
power somehow to do through legislation and their
Sure.
friends and whatnot. And the people up there are just saying, no, leave everything alone. But so I don't, again, this is one of those things where y'all just don't know how lucky you are to have a cooperative working in your favor. And fantastic.
the cooperative model was started, and you know it was started because in the rural areas, the investor-owned utilities wouldn't serve the rural areas because there wasn't money to be made. Wasn't enough money to be made. The density of the customers, the number of people per mile, it wasn't there. So the people had to build it themselves. So that pioneering, build it yourself, own it yourself, do it yourself DNA still resonates with a whole bunch of folks. And they're still standing today, all of those years later, of doing something on their own. This is our 72nd year of being in business, and it was started with 90 people who went off and they mortgaged their cattle, they mortgaged land, they borrowed money so they could build a facility, because they had to build it first, and then they could apply for a loan from REA. So they actually built facilities themselves, used their own farming equipment. Talk about a rugged pioneering spirit.
Oh my gosh.
And they built this utility with 90 people back in 1946 and 1947.
Now, and we're not just talking Bullhead City area or Mojave Valley. The co-op goes, I know, at least as far over as Wickiup.
Yeah.
What is the outline of your?
There
grid?
isn't an outline. One day I'll bring in the map.
Okay.
But the map it looks fairly gerrymandered, is what it looks, because we got parts of the state. We as cooperatives got parts of the state that are all rural, that were all low density, that folks didn't want to serve. So we have the Bullhead City area that goes all the way down to basically to California along that side, along this side of the river. We also have some service territory that goes from Wickiup, as you identified,
Right.
all along Highway 93, basically all the way, and we serve all the way up to the rim of the Grand Canyon.
Holy criminy!
We
really?
have a very rural, dispersed area out in what's called our eastern service territory, which is east of Kingman. Kingman itself was served by investor-owned utilities, so you know we're not there, but
Right.
we're where they weren't, I guess. And so there we sit. We have one line that's 70 miles long that has 12 customers on it. So
Are you kidding?
No, and
My
that's
gosh.
the kind of diversity and that's the kind of rural density that we as co-ops were built on. And so now we sit years later, so 70 years later, now the density is improved in like Bullhead City and Mojave Valley, and now maybe there would be investor-owned utilities that would want to serve that load.
Sure.
But people have grown close to their cooperatives. We're very competitive, and you know that. We're very competitive from a rate standpoint, and the people themselves don't want to lose it. And you know, the good part is in the cooperative bylaws is that the cooperative members have to vote to
Right.
sell or get rid of the co-op. So it's not just co-op management or board that gets to do that.
Sweet.
The membership has a great deal to do with the members going or a co-op going away. So
I'm still stuck on the 12 families or 12 homes in a 70-mile string. Obviously, you guys invested. I mean, you put all this stuff up, right?
yeah, we did. And one of the consumers is a large consumer, which is the Havasupai load that's down in the canyon. And so that's a fairly large load, and that line was built to serve that particular load. So it's a fairly large load, but then there's 11 other loads that are not so large.
But we're talking to put poles up
Yes.
and lines up for 70 miles. what an investment. I mean,
Absolutely.
until that builds and more people get on it, that's a lot of cost per hookup.
It is, and a lot of those people had to pay the cost for us to build those lines
Really?
too.
Okay.
So, and there's a certain amount of free footage you get, but it's fairly small. And then if you want to, if you really want to live rural, and you want to live way out in the country somewhere, and you want electricity, there is a price to be paid.
If you
for
don't
that.
want completely off the grid.
You don't want off the grid,
Yeah.
exactly. There's a price you could pay, to be paid for that.
Oh
So,
my gosh, that's exciting. That is exciting. So what else you got going on? I don't get you here often enough anymore.
No, I know that that there is a push right now. There's a billionaire in California that is pushing a ballot initiative here in Arizona, and it's a ballot initiative about renewable energy and setting specific targets for renewable energy, I guess, to emulate California.
Oh,
So you all can decide, and you will at some point probably have to decide whether or not that's a good recipe for Arizona.
Larry Reed pushed so hard for the windmills or whatever. I can't remember if it's solar or windmills, but we've got them. It seems like all over, and I'm still not hearing about a tremendous amount of benefit, certainly for not the costs involved in putting them up. Personally, and I don't know because you've talked to me enough times, I got very little knowledge on this, but from what I'm seeing and as my own mind tells me that it's really too early for this yet. It hasn't, not that it hasn't been proven to be effective, but on a scale that they're looking at, I'm having a hard time with it.
Well, if you think it through, renewable energy has its niche, has its place, like many things do, right? I mean, it's great when the wind blows and there's power that comes from it, but the wind doesn't always blow.
Right.
Not everywhere, and it doesn't always blow consistently.
Couldn't tell anybody that here right now.
Sometimes,
but yeah.
sometimes that's true, but I will say that, and the next day I'll be here, and the flag will be dead still.
Yep.
And there's nothing being. And people aren't then denied access to electricity when the wind's not blowing.
Right.
So there's an infrastructure there that has to be there when we talk about these intermittent resources. And solar is the same thing. Solar is really great,
Sure.
and it's really good for a certain time period. But if you overbuild, and well, I'll just say it plainly, if you overbuild, and California is at 25% right now, and they're trying to move up to 50%. If you overbuild, what you have is a glut of energy during the middle part of the day. And
Right.
when you and no energy at night, and then very little on the shoulders, and so what then happens is, when there's a glut of energy, that price gets really low, and you make an investment that you need to sell it for 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour, but you're not getting that during the glut time. So, and we know that because we buy it during that glut time, and it's cheaper for us to buy it sometimes than it is to generate it. As a matter of fact, there are times that they pay us to take it.
So the investors have said mills, if you will, power mills, can't be real happy about that.
Well, you have to remember that California's energy policy has been driven by and created by politics since the early 2000s.
Right.
So it's a political energy policy, and if you ignore the investment, renewables are really a good idea. If you don't have to pay the investment, or you don't have to worry about getting repaid for the
Right.
investment. And so if you're a number of investor-owned utilities and you're forced to make an investment in renewables, and you get paid for the investment plus a rate of return plus a profit, it's really hard for you to complain about it.
Right.
Now the electricity rates go up. They've gone up astronomically in California since 2000. You look at their tiered rate schedule. Their lowest rate schedule is higher than our highest rate, or their lowest tier.
Really?
Yeah, their lowest tier is usually somewhere between 13 and 15 cents, and their highest one is anywhere from 25 to 35 cents. We're not close to that. Our highest rate tier is about 12. So
Wow.
our highest rate tier is lower than their lowest rate tier. So if when you're a cooperative, you're a little bit different. If policy comes down or regulation comes down and it doesn't make sense, or if it doesn't work for you and it doesn't work for your membership,
Right.
we tend to push back on that. And we'll push back on it because it doesn't make economic sense for our members.
What are the chances of this guy's success? Do you have any idea?
I really don't know. I really don't know. It's kind of a brand new thing, and there's a brand new law being pushed in Arizona that is somewhat similar. I guess it's fairly similar. I know that the co-ops are trying to get exempted from the law part that's going on here in Arizona. For one reason is that we certainly would ask our elected representatives in those areas, in the rural areas, not to vote for it. So, sorry, I didn't.
Oh, is that you?
It was me this whole time. So.
Oh, I'm just listening.
So now we have
I'm
to
looking at
start
my
over.
laptop down
I
here.
was hoping
What
it
is
would
going
just
on?
stop, and I didn't turn it on, didn't turn it off, and so all right, we have to
I
go
thought I
back
was
to it.
losing my mind.
No, that's me, and damn it, sorry about that. So I was hoping it wouldn't go off, and it did. So
Oh,
all right.
Thank you. No, you just kept me from going completely.
No,
stark
you're
raving
not
mad.
crazy, but I wasn't going to reach in my pocket in the middle of the interview and shut it off.
Well,
but
yeah.
now I have to.
Yeah,
So.
now
All right, so
you
we'll have
got
to pick
caught.
back up whenever and you'll have to resplice. So.
Oh no, it's gonna roll. Are you gotta kidding me?
Whatever it takes.
It's fine.
So anyway, so there is a bill that we're trying to exempt ourselves from, and we will ask our rural communities folks to oppose it if we don't get an exemption, because the rural communities are disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged communities, and
Right.
they just can't afford a bunch of infrastructure to be built.
Right.
And we don't represent a huge amount of load in the state.
Right.
So getting us to be part of that isn't really necessarily going to help the overall scheme of things. So you know, our whole generation portfolio is what just short of 600 megawatts. That's for all the co-ops. That's our generation portfolio. At least the ones that we belong to, it's about 600 megawatts. It might be a little bigger if you include the entity that serves Pine Top. But if you look at the generation portfolio, 600 megawatts, APS is over 5,000.
Oh wow.
We're not even, and that's just APS. That's not
Barely a
SRP.
blip.
That's not TEP. So, you know, why drag the economically disadvantaged communities that really can't make an impact anyway? Why
Right.
drag them into a scenario where all you're doing is you're going to drive up the cost of electricity? And so we really get concerned about that. We do get concerned because we have to pass those costs on to our members,
Right.
and we don't get paid a profit or rate of return on it. So it's just an additional
Straight
cost.
through pass along.
And oh, by the way, I'm a member. I don't want my bills going up either like
Right,
that.
right.
So and so are most of the employees. Almost every employee is a member. So we're not really excited about it. All of our board of directors are members too. So we really look at any time there's regulation that looks burdensome or doesn't look like it provides us a great value, we get concerned about it, and we will act upon it, just like I guess like we did with the patronage capital
Yeah.
issue. We will come together and we'll act on it, and our constituency has the history and the DNA of rising up with us. So when these
Apparently
things
so.
happen, they rise up too, and say nay to something that makes no sense.
Nay. Well, Tyler, again, I've got to say congratulations. Well-run campaign, and obviously very successful, and the entire community owes you a debt of gratitude.
Thank
you.
you.
And your co-op members.
Thank you.
very
Well,
much.
we appreciate everyone's effort, because without the members, we wouldn't be here. Without the
Absolutely.
members helping, we wouldn't be here either. We
Excellent.
didn't do this on our own, so we all worked together.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any questions, you get a hold of Tyler or any one of his representatives at the MEC office. We're going to take a real quick break. We'll come back with more of the morning show right after this. Stay with us.